Welcome to On Fighting in Thailand, the best news and analysis covering the economics and infrastructure of Muay Thai. I'm Matt Lucas, journalist, commentator, and ex-Muay Thai fighter. Makes stronger fighters, makes stronger people. Today we will be talking to Scott Kent as part of our series on promoters. As always, if you'd like to reach me, you can follow me on Instagram, Matt Lucas Muay Thai, or email me at a.matt.lucas@gmail.com. Thanks to all the people that have supported me so far, sharing the podcast, leaving reviews. If you'd like, you can leave a review. That would be super helpful. You can do so on the iTunes store. Also, I have partnered with JJ Ferraro and Stefan Strohmeyer to start a new project called the Muay Thai Panel. It goes over scoring in very clear detail, going over referee mechanics, what scores, what doesn't score. We have fight reviews. We look exactly at what scores and what doesn't score. Super helpful for fighters, coaches, and fans. You can follow it on Patreon. Again, it's the Muay Thai Panel. As always, thank you to Patrick Rivera for getting the show started. This is a great show. I'm very excited about it, especially going into talking to some of the promoters about the back end of the business, what it costs to put on a show, what are some of the difficulties of doing so. I feel like by understanding the business of the sport, more people will be able to help it grow. Scott obviously has been a big person in Muay Thai, has been promoted 72 shows over the last 12 years, so quite a storied career. So without further ado, the interview with Scott Kent. So thank you so much, Scott, for coming on the show today. How are you doing?
Matt, I'm doing great, buddy. How are you?
I'm good. Happy belated birthday, of course. Hope you had a good birthday.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Awesome. So let's get right into it. Why did you start to do Lion Fight? It began in Prim, Nevada, correct? If I am right?
No, you're absolutely right. I was a casino executive for the Mirage and then Mandalay Resort Group and then the Fountain Blue. You know, I trained in Thailand with One Kick Nick, and I went over and trained with Takum, our friend there. And, I've always been involved with it. And after my casino life, I just decided I wanted to do something different. And there was a lot of interest in getting somebody with some business acumen involved with promoting Lion Fight and, getting it hopefully to a brand where you'll have some international recognition. And you're right, we started in Prim out on the state line. We started real small and we did 3 shows. And then I think we were off and running off to the Hard Rock in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I think I went to one of the first shows. It was, I think it was called Battle in the Desert. I remember Chaz Mulkey fought on it against Remy, some tall guy from Florida, a tall Frenchman.
Remy. Oh, yeah.
That was definitely a good start. How do you think your background in the casinos played a part in Lion Fight, especially in the beginning?
Well, I think the fact that I had all these casino contacts, the reason we were in Prim was because a friend of mine was the general manager. Mm-hmm. Reason we went to the Hard Rock is people that I knew from the casino business. The reason we went to Foxwoods is because one of my best friends was the president out there. So that was really the kind of the genesis of tapping into all of those contacts I've made over the years in the casino industry and being able to do the shows. As a matter of fact, to this day, I'm still dealing with a lot of people that I knew from my time in the casino industry.
What do you think are some of the pros and cons of working with the casinos? Because, especially for pro Muay Thai, a lot of shows are at casinos because of the hardships of regulations with the different state athletic commissions.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. Obviously, when we started, you could get very good site fees from the casinos. You would bring bring the customers in. And being a casino guy, I understood that they were going to spend some money if we could draw people into their venue, the old classic mousetrap. And that's what we were able to do. And then, that business has changed somewhat too. Doing the Native American casinos, we've had a lot of success in doing that. They don't have the regulation that you get with a lot of the state commissions. So you've got a lot more flexibility. They've got hotel rooms. They provide food for the fighters. So there's a lot of financial reasons why that business model really makes sense.
And just backtracking a little bit to some of those early days, what was it like initially starting Lion Fight? It was, it's been almost 15 years, correct?
Yeah, I think we're going into our 12th year now in full-time, Lion Fight promotions.
So what were some of those early shows like? You said you had the first 3 in Prim, Nevada, and then moved to Hard Knocks. What were some of the early goals, and what were you trying to achieve with it?
Well, we were, quite frankly, scared shitless to venture into this. It was a business that I was learning a lot about. I understood Muay Thai, but the business of Muay Thai is very different than fighting in general. I had Christine Toledo, who was a former fighter. She was my matchmaker and partner in this thing. And, when we first started, we sat down with Kevin Ross, and I don't remember if it was Chaz. And, we were at a restaurant, and we just started drawing things out on a placemat at the restaurant saying, what do the fighters want? What would be good for Muay Thai? So we didn't come in with the attitude like we had all of the answers. We knew we needed to learn our way along, kind of learn as we went. And yet we were committed to really, even in those early days, we had Sakman Cole, we had Cosmo Alexander, Star of the Desert, Battle of the Desert shows that we did out of Prim. So we were bringing in major international talent. Even on those first shows, Kevin Ross and, Joe Schilling, all those guys fought for us out at Prim. And, we just steadily grew. And I've had the good fortune of having, good friends that are investors that kind of were able to get us through the tough patches and get us going and financing a lot of that, because it's people don't understand how complex the business part of it and all of the expenses are that goes into that. So we've been lucky and we've made a lot of mistakes along the way, but we've also developed a brand we're very proud of.
Yeah, obviously, it's not easy to do a show, especially for so long. You see so many shows come and go. A lot of them start big and then sort of peter out or just disappear. And to have a show consistently is very difficult. You talked a little bit about the business and some of the complexities of doing this. What are some of the sort of unseen issues or expenses that most people wouldn't know about when putting on a show?
Well, it starts with the purses, and then, you've got to rent out the venue, you've got to rent lighting, you've got to rent the ring, you've got to rent insurance for all of the fighters. All of your fighters have to be insured. They have to meet the local requirements of, the commission in that particular state. Travel, we bring in a lot of international fighters, you got to deal with hotel costs, you got to deal with food, you got to deal with the commission expenses, you got to deal with sanctioning body expenses, licensing, ticket taxes, pre-fight meds are a huge part. People that are on a fight in the United States don't understand how much it costs to do a show in Las Vegas or Massachusetts or California. So you don't deal with those expenses in Thailand or in Europe. So that's why, and you kind of alluded to it, I don't know how many promotions I've seen come and go in the last, 10, 12 years that started out, with the best of intentions and just didn't realize how cost-laden these kinds of shows are. And then you get streaming, and then you get into the television side of it. And, I was on a call recently and people were talking about the business of Muay Thai who've never even promoted a show in the United States, and I'm like, you know, you don't understand how expensive it is to put on a show. Some promoters just do amateurs, or they'll do just local pro-ams, and they're not flying people in, they're not paying for all of these other ancillary costs, and it's a business model that works for them. And I mean, I have a lot of respect for the guys that do that. We've always tried to look at it more as a global brand, both television exposure and then with the amount of money that we've invested in bringing in the lot, Yachts and Clydes, Jurina Bars, Lurtzilla, all of these guys that aren't cheap. So you bring in these international names so that you get the attention of, these other countries. And I think that's why the Lion Fight brand is what it is now.
Yeah, so I guess if we sort of break down, you made a pretty long list of the cost of having a fighter. So you have things like food, travel, the pre-fight meds, insurance, the purse, of course, and hotel. I mean, you're looking at, just to have, a fighter on your show, it's going to cost you maybe $3,000 or more, just their base cost. And that's like with a pretty low purse. Does that sound like a rough number, or?
No, I think that's way low.
Low.
To be honest. When you start looking, because it's not just the fighter. You
Yeah.
got to bring their in too. So you're flying two in from Europe. You're flying two people in from the coast. You've got to do all of the pre-fight meds, which I think in Nevada are about $1,200 a fighter.
Yeah, I assumed it was maybe 600, but so yeah, that definitely doubles things.
I mentioned the cost for COVID, which we've had to deal with for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
We did 10 shows last year and a couple of Road to Lion fights. And, you got to tack on testing. You got to tack on, having a doctor, having procedures and all of the go along with it. So that's not a small number either.
Yeah. So it'd be double. It'd be more like $6,000 just to have, a mid-low fighter on your show in terms of cost.
Oh, mid to low. And again, you're weighing that when you make that decision. Is this guy or girl, is this a quality of fighter that we want? Is this somebody marketable? Is this somebody that can sell tickets? So that's the struggle. That's the battle that you deal with.
Yeah, obviously it's a hard marketing decision to make, because someone might be a very talented fighter and a super nice guy, but it's risky to invest $6,000 in them if they can't necessarily sell tickets or, provide value. Maybe they're more technical and end up in a boring fight. It's a lot of money.
Well, and not just that, you've got commentators. God forbid, talked about production yet. So when you got $12,000 for a production truck, and you've got commentators, you've got hotel rooms for all of those people. You've got your social media person, you've got your person that does all your graphics. All has an expense that's thrown into this, and that's why, like you mentioned, so many promotions just kind of come and go because they don't see us to promote fights. Oh, I could do that. I used to fight, or I used to do this. But reality is it's a very, very tough business.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, why do you do it then? You said that, you wanted to try it out and you were learning a lot along the way, but at its core, why are you doing it?
Matt, I love the sport, and I think there were so many times where we could have folded up our tent and just went home, and I could have went back and to a successful, casino career and made a lot of money and not dealt with all of the stress and, all of the social media sometimes, which is a lot of times negative. And you got to have a tough skin to do this. And it's almost like a challenge to me, and I feel obligated to all of the fighters that we've signed, that the people that work for us. Scott Zur, who's been with us for years, is a matchmaker, does an amazing job. We're all committed to seeing this thing through because we truly believe at the end of the day, it's got a much bigger upside. Mm-hmm. And what we're doing is maybe not the monetary returns that you would like right now, but as far as from a satisfaction standpoint, as far as from a personal standpoint, there's nothing like the, after a fight, and you've been there, mm-hmm. You've seen us when you've got fighters literally in tears telling you that it was, their dream to fight on Lion Fight. Mm-hmm. And, winning the title was, one of the best nights of their lives. It's tough to monetize that. And I think that's what kind of internally keeps me motivated mm-hmm. to keep going.
Mm. Yeah, I was able, obviously, I've been to a few Lion Fight shows over the years, and obviously the one out in Boston recently, and it was a really good time after, everyone hanging out. It was very, jovial. People were just happy that the event went so well, and, there's just a real spirit of camaraderie that I can definitely see being very, very intrinsically motivating. You've obviously had some upsides in your career with Lion Fight. What are some of the most memorable moments for you, though?
Boy, there's been so many. I think, having Yodson Clyde come and fight Chike Lindsay, and mm-hmm. it was an epic fight. And, American Muay Thai has never been at a level where they've been competitive really for, with the Thais or a lot of the Europeans. But that fight was kind of, I thought, a turning point for us because it was just, both fighters were bloodied. It was a very close fight. Yodson Clyde won. But, at the time, he was, the best Muay Thai fighter of his generation. And to have an American fighting, and being able to fight him as well as he did was something that sticks out. Having Jarena Bars beat Chris Cyborg at the Hard Rock. That was something where, Joe Rogan was there. We had a lot of the UFC fighters, the Diaz brothers were there. A lot of UFC brass were there. And to be able to see that in saying that, here's Muay Thai up against the baddest woman on the planet and mm-hmm. beating her. Mm-hmm. And, I could just go right down the list. You look at guys like Chip Pollard and Steve Walker who, just amazing personal stories. And to be able to become world champions and represent the sport so well, it's really an honor to work with guys like that.
Yeah, there's definitely been some memorable fights. I especially like some of the battles on Fremont Street when you had Kevin Ross versus Yamamoto. That was a very, very memorable bout. Almost 10 years ago now, at least 8. And then, guys like Chip Pollard did have successful careers and were able to go international. He defended his belt, 7 times?
Yeah.
So definitely some high points. You've gone through different phases with the business model to some extent. You were on Access TV for a while, and now you're on UFC Fight Pass. Can you talk about some of the changes in your business model and why those things happened?
Well, I think they were all part of our growth. Mm-hmm. You have to remember when we started this, it was only linear TV. You were passing fight posters out of your trunk, mm-hmm. and that time, old tickets, you would give fighters, a stack of tickets, and hopefully they sold most of them. Now that's changed with the streaming services, with linear TV. We were kind of at that transition point with Access TV. Mm-hmm. We were able to do, I think we did 3 years on Access TV. It was a great partner. It really got our feet wet with production and what goes involved, what's involved with all of that. And, we've done streaming some shows, and then we did CBS Sports Network for a year, mm-hmm. Their television linear network. And, that it's got its advantages and its disadvantages. It's CBS Sports, but it's only broadcast in North America. So mm-hmm. all of our European fighters couldn't see the shows. Mm-hmm. All of our Canadian fighters couldn't even see the shows.
Mm-hmm.
So, then we started talking to Fight Pass, and, they were committed to building the biggest combat sports platform in the world. Obviously the UFC is huge, and the brand represents that. Being able to be a part of that was great because, it gave the combat sports folks that maybe had only seen MMA an opportunity to see lion fight, see Muay Thai, and the knockout of the year on UFC Fight Pass was Steve Walker.
Mm-hmm.
That says a lot because I think there were 30 promotions on the network, and for them to pick our fight as the fight of the year or the knockout of the year was an amazing accomplishment, I think, for the brand. And as we continue to grow and look at other options, heavily focused on the American market, but also tagging into what's happening in Europe, what's happening
Mm-hmm.
in Thailand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And Line Fight has expanded as well, going into Europe, doing a lot of co-branded shows. Can you talk about that and why you have decided and done that?
Yeah, I think it makes a lot more sense, to have boots on the ground, people that know what they've done. We've done a number of shows with Muay Thai Grand Prix. Really liked working with those guys. There were, they'd previously been on Fight Pass, and then Fight Pass went ahead and, they weren't on Fight Pass anymore, so they only wanted one Muay Thai promotion. So they chose us, and we were able to, to set up some shows at the Indigo Room at the O2, which is an amazing venue. And there's a lot going on in England right now. We do these Road to Lion Fight shows as well, and I was there 2 weeks ago, and a lot of great young talent in the UK. We were working with a Rob Hayward's group there, and Hybrid Fight Series, and it gives us an opportunity to get our brand out there with guys that know what they're doing, that can help us with some of the logistics on matchmaking and getting the venue and things like that. And I think that's something you're going to see Matt probably a lot more throughout this year and next year as these Road to Lion Fight shows. We're going to be back in Argentina. We're going to do these couple more in the United States and hopefully Canada if they can get around the COVID stuff.
Yeah, I know that, with all the different countries having different legislation around COVID, it can always be a hassle. Like you said, extra expenses. What do you see as some of the pros and cons of having these boots on the ground shows? Yeah.
Yeah, I think the biggest advantage is you're going in with someone that you trust. Somebody that's going to put together a great show that's really of the quality that we've, kind of been known for now. Everything from the production, from the lighting, from the venue, the ticket sales, they can handle all of that. They'll work with Scott Zer on the matchmaking, and it's something we kind of have the final say on. And it may be a European champion, like we just did on the last show, have that title belt available. And hopefully it gives these opportunities to these other fighters that want to fight for Lion Fight, that maybe want to come to the U.S. and eventually fight for a European title or a world title. So it's a great branding opportunity for us, and something that we're very high on right now.
That makes sense. And just in terms of the production side, is it difficult to sort of coordinate some of the production issues? Because I assume UFC Fight Pass has some standards, like, I don't know what they are, but certain standards for the streaming. Is that side of things difficult to sort of coordinate?
Yeah, they've got their own staff there, and, they will deal with our production group, and, they've got technical requirements, which were way over my head, but, they seem to speak the same language, but you've always got technical issues, satellite time. Do you want to use a production truck? Do you want to use a fly pack? Do you want to use commentators there? Do you want to use Kiswi or one of these groups to have commentators doing your show in separate languages? Lots of options, a lot of balls in the air. and we are reliant on these other jurisdictions to kind of be familiar with lion fight. Rob was at our last show in Boston and kind of got a feel for how we do the weigh-ins. What are the production requirements? And yeah, UFC's got a list. Some of the other folks that we're dealing with, they're more flexible on some things, but have requirements on like graphics and tail of the tape and those kinds of things. So internet, these things all go into putting on one of these shows.
Yeah, it definitely sounds very complicated.
You need help. I certainly needed help, and I've been blessed to have great people around me and that really buy into what we're doing. And like any business, that's the key to success.
And to some extent, you alluded to it before, but what are you looking for in one show? What does a successful show mean to you?
Well, I think if the fights come off well and they're well-matched fights and they're exciting and, everybody walks out of there wanting to see another fight, or, you have folks going on the website trying to find out when the next fight is, that's exciting. After the fight, we always get a ton of fighter interest from all over the world, people that want to fight for Lion Fight because they see that we are committed to bringing in, the best talent, that we've got a brand now that people are proud to fight on.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's, enjoying it, everybody enjoying it, and the fighters having a great time. And like you mentioned in Boston, it's everything from the weigh-in, it's everything to the after party, everybody having a great experience and speaking highly, hopefully, of the product that you have.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, having such a long and storied career, there's been ups and downs. What do you think are some of the key moments for you where you learned a lot about the business of promoting?
Well, I think it's, trust is a big thing. We one of the issues we've always had, and more in the early years, is things like, fighters selling tickets, because it was such an integral part of your pro forma for each individual fight. A fighter will take 80 tickets and then, sell 11 of them. So you get handed a stack of tickets at the weigh-in, and there's no way back in the box office, there's no way to sell them. And a lot of times we always give the fighters the best tickets, so that's going to be in your main camera view. So how do you fill those seats? That's a challenge. I think sometimes we've been led down kind of a primrose path here, that these fighters, it's a business and we all need to pitch in. And I think that was one of the areas where maybe we've put too much emphasis on the ability of the fighters to sell the tickets that they take. I think we've probably overspent a lot of these fights just because we wanted to keep up good relations with folks, or people have promised sponsorships and things like that haven't delivered. And I think those are probably, a few of the more disappointing things. You build a fighter and you give them these opportunities to fight, and then, they'll get a new manager or they'll get married, and, the whole picture changes and people kind of forget all of the things that you did for them. And that's a frustrating part probably of any business.
Yeah, for sure. And just going back to a little bit of the ticket sales, do you feel like, because a little bit of the model has changed, I wouldn't say completely, but you would be more accurate about it? You said definitely in the early days, ticket sales were so important. Do you feel like that is still a big issue, or because now that you're on streaming platforms like the UFC, some of the pressure has been removed?
Well, it helps having a licensing fee, so you're not as stressed about it, but it's still, I listed all of the costs that go into putting one of these things on. So you're still hoping that with the venue you got, that people are going to sell. We've transitioned from giving fighters, 100 tickets or 50 tickets or whatever they say they can sell, to where now you buy them online and we can track fighter sales there. So if a fighter's out and they haven't sold any tickets, we're able to reach out to the fighters camp and say, we're spending a lot of money here to get you on this card. We need you to do your part and get out and sell those tickets. And some fighters just feel like they're above that. there's very few fighters that I found that really care a lot about their career and their own brand that aren't willing to make the effort to do that. And I think you'll see it's not just us. Any promotion will tell you that. It's a big part of your business model to have that revenue coming in and to get the butts in the seats. You're growing a brand, you're growing the fighter's brand. And you want, when you're on television, you want the venue to be rocking,
Yeah. Obviously, you've dealt with some fighters that are very successful at selling tickets and some that are not so much. What do you think are some of the key indicators of people that are good at it, and how do they sort of approach ticket sales and working with you in a positive way?
Well, I think a lot of it is social media now. I mean, back then, didn't have social media. Now it's easy to invite all your friends and family, with one click of a button, or make it so easy. We send out the link to all the fighters. All they need to do is send the link in. Couple of clicks and they've got the tickets. It's not, you've got to go to everybody in the gym now and hard sell, people or all your friends and family. And again, I think, if somebody's serious about fighting and serious about their career, they understand the importance of developing their own fan base. I'm sure they feel a hell of a lot better when they're fighting and everybody's screaming their name, rather than just their opponent. So there's not a good reason to not do it. And I've heard fighters say, well, I'm too busy, or I'm this, or I'm that. Well, then you're too busy to develop your own brand. I mean, we're busted to build our brand. We expect you to pull your weight.
Yeah, that is definitely true. In my own fight career, I remember I was not very good at ticket sales, and it's definitely something that I emphasize now that I'm more on the back end of the industry. I just realized, oh, fuck, I would... So much would have changed if I had been better at it. When you talk about, hearing people shout your name because you sold a lot of tickets, that happened to me. But I was on the other end. I didn't have as much support as my opponent, and in the ring, I just heard the opponent's name being shouted over and over and over, and it was totally intimidating. I was like, oh, what am I doing with my life? So, I do think it's important, obviously, from a monetary standpoint, but also from a performance standpoint.
And you get your gyms involved, and part of the problem sometimes isn't the fighter, it's their manager. The managers want top dollar, they want this, they want that. But when it comes down to, helping your fighter market himself, helping your gym market yourself, shoot videos of your fighter in your gym, get your banner in there. It's all about brand recognition and growing the sport. So I don't have a lot of patience with guys, and again, a lot of times it's not the fighters are easy to deal with. A lot of times, it's the managers, it's the spouse, it's this person that thinks, we're going to do, we expect all of this, but we're not going to do that, and it's not, teams that we're interested in dealing with.
You sort of touched on it a little bit, but do you think there's maybe 2 or 3 specific things that fighters can do to promote themselves, in a positive way regularly?
Yeah, I think social media, again, it's so easy now. Back in the day, you didn't have that. They can't make it any more easy for you. Shoot a couple of videos while you're training, or you're having, whatever. Talk about your upcoming fight. It's all content, and it's all relevant to your brand, and helping promote the sport itself. I think social media is a big part of it. A lot of our fighters, we don't limit fighters with sponsors. Reach out to your community. You can make a lot of money in sponsorship. We pay the fighters a percentage of all the tickets that they sell. So there's an incentive. Bring in sponsors. Maybe it's the person that cuts your hair. Maybe it's the guy that works on your car. It doesn't have to be a lot of money, but you're engaging the community and you're gaining fans for yourself and for the sport. And I think a lot of it is comes down to the the people around you, the gym. Get your gym involved. so many fighters that we have are so successful, they're always on social media shooting these little video clips. Look at Warren Thompson, a likable guy in the Muay Thai community. He's a character. People love him. He's always on social media. And that makes a lot of sense to a promoter to bring a guy like that because he's so passionate about himself and he's very honest about himself. Really resonates with fans because it's not just the fighter in the ring, it's the fighter before they get in the ring and the fighter after the ring. What's your story? Story to tell. Kevin Ross had a great story about the challenges that he had to overcome, and Muay Thai essentially saved his life. And there's a lot of guys out there like that. And so those are the stories that the casual fan is going to be very interested to tell. Well, we can do it. We can have the writer at Fight Pass write a story on you. We can do some social media posts. But a lot of times we don't know what that story is. Have your story.
Yeah, I think that there's, a couple really good things that you brought up. The first one was about getting community support. I did an article recently on a fighter, I think about a year ago, maybe, that has fought on your promotion, and their ability to get sponsors basically doubled their purse size, and they were they're not getting like huge amounts of money, but they're going to the local cafe, their local pub, all these different places, and $500-600 from here and there, it added up, and makes a big difference. Go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, it adds up. And, sell tickets. You're getting 20%. All you need to do is send the link to these people. They buy the tickets.
Yeah.
You don't have to take a stack of tickets to your gym. You don't have to mail things out and FedEx anything like we used to have to do, and all of the expense that went along with that. It's a business that, again, we've been through a lot in 12 years. We've done 72 fights in 8 countries. We've made our mistakes along the way, but we probably have as good a handle as anybody as far as what the business of Muay Thai actually is, because we've done it. We're not talking about it. We've done it, and we've done it successfully for 12 years, and we're not making lots of money. Sometimes we're losing money on a fight or we're breaking even, but we've got the wherewithal and the commitment to keep it going because we believe in this sport, and we want fighters to kind of represent that kind of underdog attitude. It's always going to be boxing and MMA, but you know what? We're very proud of our sport. We think we've got the most exciting stand-up fighting sport in the world, and it's our task just to get more people to see it, because I know they're going to fall in love with it.
Yeah, absolutely. The other, I think, big point, and something we've sort of been circling around constantly, is just the issue of branding all the time. You talked about Kevin Ross having this backstory about how he's, his struggle with alcoholism, and then Muay Thai changes his life. Not a lot of fighters have that same level of sort of brand recognition or brand awareness. And you said, so many fighters need to develop their stories more. What do you see as common stories or common ways for fighters to develop those sort of brand ideas?
Well, it can be anything. I played Division II football and wherever, and I realized I wasn't going to play professional football, so I got into Muay Thai. Chip Pollard was an MMA fighter. He was a 500 MMA fighter, but he always loved striking, and he knew that was, the strengths. So, I fought in MMA, and I think he fought Bellator. I know he's fought in some other organizations, but he didn't excel until he got into a sport that fit his natural talents. He wasn't a wrestler. He wasn't a jiu-jitsu guy. And something as simple as that is saying, and we have a lot of MMA fighters that reach out to us that, maybe didn't take wrestling in high school and college or jiu-jitsu, which you have to be very proficient at now in MMA. I love to strike. I love the cultural aspect. I love the discipline
Mm-hmm.
of Muay martial art. That's another selling fact. Why did you get into Muay Thai? Because it's not for everybody. You know as well as anybody. You have to be very committed to the sport because it's a very dangerous sport,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also a very beautiful sport.
Mm-hmm.
And what drew you to Muay Thai? So your story may not seem that big of a deal to you, but maybe it's going to resonate to other people
Mm-hmm.
who are interested in martial arts, or maybe you're not comfortable in MMA. Maybe Muay Thai is something that I can develop as a maybe it's just a casual pastime. Maybe it's just something I go train a couple days a week. But what inspires you? That's what's going to inspire other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point. And just sort of wrapping things up, and something that you talked about, what are sort of the future plans? What are some of the dates that are going to come up for Lion Fight?
Well, as late as today, we're looking at we're going to go into Texas.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to go to California. We're going to be obviously back in Boston for a couple times this year. And I was talking to some folks last week about Vegas, where we're going to do our shows here. So those would be the majority of our domestic shows. We're going to be back in Sicily. We're going to be back in England. And we're going to do a Road to Lion Fight in Argentina, as well as Uruguay. And as you may or may not know, we have some breaking news about our relationship with our good friends at Fairtex and Sam at Ute, as far as doing some shows in Thailand. So we're going to do a press release here in the next week or two, kind of outlining when that's going to be and what that's going to entail from a broadcast standpoint.
Yeah, that will be very, very exciting. Obviously, a lot of times promotions are bringing ties to the States or other areas, and I think a really big deal when a promotion goes to Thailand. And there's some real advantages to it. So I'm definitely very excited to see Lion Fight over here in Thailand, and to see it continue more in the States as well and internationally. Just wrapping things up, is there anything that you wanted to talk about that we didn't get a chance to talk about?
I think we've covered most of it, Matt. I appreciate it. You've got a big audience in the Muay Thai community. You're well respected. I appreciate you taking the time to come to our shows and support us. I think the challenges that are out there for Muay Thai, and we all need to kind of come together and get behind a promotion that established itself. Muay Thai is very fragmented in the United States. Mm-hmm. Coastally and in states and different gyms and sanctioning bodies, and you kind of alluded to it in the past, and as far as branding, there's a lot of opportunities for sanctioning bodies, WBC, WMC, there's the IFMA shows, there's the other shows that are out there. There's a lot of them, a lot of belts out there. But I think what kind of distinguishes us is that, we've done this for 12 years. We've got North American belts, we've got European belts, and we've got world title belts. And, I would put our champions up against anybody. And I think the fact that we've been asked to do this, and we're very honored to be able to, be the first American promotion to do these shows in Thailand, where we're going to be doing them. So, let's all get behind everybody here and support Muay Thai. I appreciate everything you've done, and you've always been a good friend to us, and look forward to working with you in the future.
Yeah, thanks so much. And, just backing that up, again, going to Chip Pollard, he defended his belt 7 times. He went up against Jacob Benko, who is very, very internationally recognized. The bout was very close. Benko went on to beat Joe Buber, also an internationally recognized fighter. So there's credibility to the belt. So it's always good to talk to you, Scott, and I appreciate your time out. Hopefully I will be seeing you out here in Thailand soon.
Sounds good, buddy. Take care.
So that was a great interview with the founder of Lion Fight, Scott Kent. Obviously, line fight has gone through some ups and downs throughout the years. Definitely, a lot of learning has gone on. But I think what has been the biggest point that Sky has learned is how important branding is, and how you really need to understand your story, not only as a fighter but also as a promoter, and any type of business, especially in the sport. It's not something that's talked about a lot, but it's definitely something that needs to happen. So definitely appreciate Scott taking out his time to talk. I thought I learned a lot about the business, just going over some of the monetary costs of putting on a show. Out here in Thailand, putting on a show does not cost that much. You look at just having one fighter on your show, it's going to be, according to Scott, somewhere in the ballpark of, $5,000 to $6,000. That's a lot of money. It's a big investment from the promoter. So definitely something to think about. This has been On Fighting in Thailand, the best news and analysis covering the economics and infrastructure of Muay Thai. I'm Matt Lucas, journalist, commentator, and ex-Muay Thai fighter. Make stronger fighters, make stronger people.